Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a continuation again in my favorites and fails, my beauty needs and nopes of 2017. I've got some questions, people saying, shouldn't this say 2018? Nope, because this is a wrap up of all of my favorite products from the previous year. I'm just kind of on my own timeline, so we're in February and I'm still making these. I am playing with my sound a little bit, so bear with me while I'm tweaking a few things. Been recording on an external microphone and always syncing in production, which since my videos are so long and my camera will automatically like divide the clips up, sometimes I'll end up with like 10 really long clips and then one source or two source of audios, and then I'm having to sync them up. There is an automated option for it, but then it leaves all this blank spot. Sometimes it doesn't sync perfectly and you got to drop it off and try to slide it over. It takes a really long time for me. I do use a clapper sometimes, which makes it, gives it a point to sync to. But today I am trying a little hack I found to plug my Zoom H6 directly into my camera to drop the input and a couple things to make sure it wasn't super loud. So it's a work in progress. Today's video, I'm going to touch on my favorite eyeshadow palettes, my favorite individual shadows, and then as well as pigments and eyeliners. Whoever said global warming isn't real is not in San Francisco right now because it's the winter and it is so hot. I'm sweating. It is very unusual for this time of year. So if I look like a sweaty Betty, that's why. I think I'm going to do this in a way where I charted all of the ones from least expensive to most expensive. And I think that that's how I'm going to do it. It'll just give a little perspective too, not on the total cost per palette, on the cost per gram, because again, some palettes you might only get a small amount of shadow in, and the price might be the same as another one that you get a ton of shadow in. Again, to some of you that may not matter because you may never use up an eyeshadow, but it's really the most accurate gauge I have for comparing costs. Always there will be timestamps next to each topic I am going to discuss below if you care to skip ahead. So I'm going to use this as like my all-time favorite palettes and individuals, things that just I'm always reaching for. Some of them are new this year and some of them are just carrying over from last year. I will also have noted on the bottom which ones were sent to me for consideration, so you know what was sent to me and which ones I purchased, just in case I forget to mention it. First up in my favorites of the year is the Juvia's Place Nubian 2 palette. I just love these shadows and they are so big. I don't know when I'll ever hit pan on any of these. Again, I like these orange, the kind of bronze colors, coppers, berries. So this one is still my favorite because I can do some neutral looks, but I can definitely kick it up with some of these pigments. And this is still my favorite one of their palettes. I do have to try a couple of their new ones I haven't got yet, but I'm so far behind in trying to review some of this stuff. I'm like, let me finish what's on my plate before I buy anything else. I do have a full review on the palettes that I did have that will be linked below if you want to see any swatches or any of my opinions further on this. Next up is the ColourPop QAF. The names on their products don't do anything for me personally. But this palette was said to be a dupe for the Natasha Denona Sunset palette, which I will cover this in a minute. And I will say, I mean, pretty much color for color, they knocked this palette off. Which, I mean, there are only so many color combinations that you can make, but I do feel like they took this palette and made their own version of it. That never really sits well with me because it does take research and a lot of time to figure out what pairings of colors you're going to have based on a variety of looks you can do and the finishes. And so, yes, it's awesome that people make affordable makeup for all to enjoy. But again, it's not a given right to anybody. And I do kind of think it's crappy sometimes when one palette will completely knock another one off shade for shade. But that aside, I do like this palette. I do have like swatch comparisons of these. I just haven't got around to the review yet. What I will say is these are actually more pigmented than these, if you can believe it. And this one is a lot less expensive. But what I will tell you, and I will do a demo, one on one eye, one on the other, these are much harder to blend out for me than these. So being super pigmented is very nice, but it can also make job of blending a lot more difficult. But again, if you like these colors, huge price discrepancy, you might as well get this and just spend a little more time blending. This is a palette that is nothing that's like really gonna like wow you or knock your socks off, but it's one I reach for and I pack when I just know I'm gonna be doing like work looks or very simple. This is the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom palette. I'm gonna show you another one that I have. I find all of their palettes to look extremely similar. I do like the formula on here. This one, I broke that one shade. This one is a little warmer, obviously, but a lot of their palettes just, I mean, they're wearable. They're wearable. This is the first one I saw that had some different shades really in it that were warmer, but I feel like the majority of their palettes look like a mixing of the two of these. This is part of that like on-trend, very warm palettes that everyone's been loving, and I do like both of these. So if you like a little warmer, I would go with the Tartelette Toasted palette, and if you just like some cool shades and everyday wearable, I would get the Tartelette in Bloom. The formula on here is very soft. You are going to get some kick up. They have that light chocolate scent to them. But again, this is like one of those palettes. It's like a no-brainer. You can just pick up a few colors. I just feel like with both of these palettes, the looks I get, the range isn't huge. And that just may be my application or what I'm naturally drawn to. But if you need something that's reliable, you're going to get a good cost per gram, and you prefer to wear neutrals and you need something cruelty-free, this would be my option. Next up is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. I do have a full review on this. Last year, I put her Rose Gold palette in the worst products of the year I tested because I just, in my opinion, that palette was terrible. I really, really like this. Again, I think it's because I like oranges and kind of reds, purples. I can make a very wide range of looks. I don't care for this loose glitter. That I could have done completely without, but everything else in this palette I'm really happy with, and I do find myself if I know I'm going down to say Southern California and I'm going to be going out with my friends and I know we have some events to go to and things, I will pack this with me because I know, and a neutral palette because I know I'll be able to do my matte looks like I wear every day, like what I have on now, or I'll be able to kind of kick it up a notch to go out at night. Next is one of my all-time favorite palettes. This is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. I am so happy they brought this back and made this permanent because it was limited edition. I love all of these colors. Ladyship is the only one that has a slight grit to it because it's also the pigment that's used in there. That's why it feels like that. It's not uncommon for purples of this shade. But I love this palette. You can do very neutral looks, or you can do very intense looks. This is a Black-owned brand, so they don't mess around with pigmentation. This will show up on the very fair to the deep skin tones, which is nice for everybody. Next up is the palette that I have on my eyes today, which is the Viseart Grand Pro Volume 1. Now, a lot of my favorites involve Viseart because I love their mattes. I do want to make clear, though, I have loved the brand since like the beginning of my channel. If you go back and look on the original when I had all the 12-pan palettes, which I bought myself, this was gifted to me, but I bought all of those originally myself. I loved the shadows so much, the matte ones. It just so happened that the owner splits her time between Paris and here, so she's actually only like 10 minutes away from me. We have developed a friendship, Anastasia and I, so I just want to be completely transparent with that. But I do, again, I will always judge the products based on the merit of them. Their mattes are my all-time favorite. I do like some of the new shimmer formulas they've come out with, but if you even watch that original video, I don't care for their like 12-pan all shimmer palettes, just because that's meant more for like professional work. It's meant to be subtle for bridal, which a lot of people, actually the reason I don't like them is why some of you do like them. They're still very well-made products. I'm just, if I'm paying $80, I want to be seen from space. That's my preference for shimmer. So if you prefer something that you can wear every day, sweep across your lid, and maybe a matte color in your crease, you would enjoy those. For me, they're just not my cup of tea. Some of the new metallics that they've come out with and subsequent palettes that have been released since are much more intense and to my liking. But if you want to see any of those reviewed in swatches, again, I will have that video linked below. So I did do a whole review on this. I also did an interview with Alphonse from Muse, who helped develop this, with Anastasia, the owner of Viseart, and it'll explain to you how each one of these has a similar undertone in each row. It is the same undertone, and then you're going to end up with a brow bone highlight, kind of like a transition color, a crease, something to deepen it up, or like a lid color, something to deepen it up, amplifiers or intensifiers that you can dip in and mix to make anything, and then kind of something to like deepen out the outer V. I use these two rows the most because obviously these are more wearable for me, and if I'm going out, I like these on the bottom here. I use this row the least because I don't wear smoky eyes that often, or like a cool like black smoky eye, but I do love this blue. I mentioned in that review, if you are a person of color, you might not get very much use out of at least this front row. This you could possibly use as a like brow bone highlight, but I don't think that you would get a ton of use out of these ones. Again, you can mix them in. This is excellent for a professional makeup artist though, because you can work and do a variety of looks. This palette with some loose pigments are some of my favorite shimmers, and that's all I need. And I do like it that the packaging is nice and thin like this, so it's not very like bulky to travel with. These are all magnetized, so you can take them out and put them in your own palettes if you want, or you can pop out any of the little 6-pan theories and put these in and just go. I just take this whole thing with me because it's very light, and I love their mattes. So again, this row, particularly these two bottom shades, are going to feel slightly gritty, and that's because this is what they're calling a pigment palette. So this has more pigment than their typical shadows. They still blend amazingly. They're really nice. And again, Viseart mattes, when you feel them to the touch, they feel a bit dry, but when you put them on with a brush on your eye, they are amazing. They blend like a dream. I mean, I'm not the best at blending my eyeshadows. Today I have this on as a transition. I have this in my crease, like a little above my crease, and then I went into this directly, smoked it out a little bit on the wing, and then I took this ever so lightly and dragged it along the back before I put my winged liner on, and then I have this on as my brow bone highlight and inner corner, and then I have this just smoked out underneath my eye. This is basically my go-to look lately, and then I can do the same kind of look with this bottom row if I want something that has a bit more like mustard color to it. I love their mattes. Next are the Viseart 12-pan palettes. So you guys have heard me talk about these a million times. These three in particular are my favorite. If you've seen those other videos, you know this is my second one of these because I didn't like use up my entire first one. It's just because I was swatching with them on some of their models on the light, medium, deep skin tones for some websites and retailers. So they have those swatches, and my palette got mixed up with theirs and it was packed. So they just gave me a new one. So this is brand new. But so if you didn't want to do that palette, you can get at Beautylish if you want to break it up in your retail into 3 payments. Or you can get that on Muse. Muse does the PayPal where you can do the 6-month interest-free. Or you can do that with their pro discount, which is $140. So when you break up how much shadow you're getting, that palette, you're getting 60 grams of product. Each one of their shades is 2 grams, which is fairly large. These don't come out. If you watch my Viseart video, you'll see I'll show you how you can pop this little tray out of it here, and then you'll kind of have to warm up the base a little bit, and then you can pop these out, but don't press too hard or they'll shatter, and that's enough to make me cry. These palettes last a very long time, and a lot of people, when I first looked at this, I was like, this is so boring, but I use this more than anything I own because I can pair this with anything. I can do anything from here, from a neutral look to a smoky eye. I have my favorite kind of orange colors in here. I love this palette, and I cannot recommend it enough. Again, because we may love those like bright purples and bright blues, and they're so fun to play with, but I think the majority of people are limited to what they can wear to work. So this you're going to get the most use out of. So this was money well spent. If you have a deeper skin tone, I do think that you're going to get minimum use out of this top row. Maybe one of the colors you could use as a brow bone highlight, but I don't think that you'd really be able to use all of these. The next one I would get would be their Dark Mattes palette. I love this palette. Ripley always says that this is kind of like her neutrals for like what I use this for. She can use this. I think this will show up on anybody from very fair to deep skin tones. Again, I love these little corners right here with the purples, this blue. They're just fantastic colors and they're beautiful. Love this palette too. So I feel like if I could only have 2 palettes, I think, ever, and I mean, I would take the Viseart Grand Pro, but if I could only take 2, I think I would take these 2. And I would be happy. And the third one is their more recently released Warm Mattes, which these colors are right up my alley too. Again, if you are a person of color, I think maybe some of these lighter shades won't work for you, but some of these deeper ones will. Next up would be the Melt Stacks, which again, so we always think that Viseart is so expensive, but when you look at all the palettes I'm about to talk about that come after that, they're more expensive per gram than those palettes, which is crazy to me because originally I was like, whoa, those are super expensive. And again, they still are. It's not inexpensive. Next are the Melt Stacks. I love all of their stacks that I have. This is just one of the Pro Pan palettes that I got so I could stick them all together because I did find myself not reaching for the stacks as much with the little magnetized stacks. If I was traveling with them, the magnet was super strong, but a few times my bag had been jostled around enough. It did kind of like split them and then taken some gouge out of some of the shadows. But I love their mattes. Their mattes are beautiful. I have a whole review, I believe, on all the Melt Stacks. Do I? I think I do. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to leave that review linked below. Again, I'm pretty consistent with the stuff that I love and I talk about and I use all the time. Their mattes are very creamy. They blend really nice. A lot of their metallics do have a lot of fallout, the newer metallics. So the ones that were in the newer formulas, like these Haze Stack, I get it all over my face, but these are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shadows. You just have to know, do your eyes first before your base or you're inevitably going to get fallout. You can buy each one of these shades individual as well, and I will touch on that when I come back to the individual shades. Next is a palette I left at my friend's and she's mailing it back to me, so I don't have it right now, but it is the Natasha Denona, the green brown, I believe it is, green brown, brown green palette. I'll show it right here on the screen. I do have a full review on that. I use those metallics the most out of any I own because, again, I can sweep it all over my lid and use it for the day. They have some of those beautiful duochromes. And that original formula, her mattes were not my favorite, but that palette is predominantly shimmers and metallics and duochromes, so I love that palette. It said, you know, I think only 12 months was the shelf life on those, and I've had them for like 2-3 years, and my palette is still good, and the shadows are huge. They're 2.5 grams, which is gigantic. I don't think I know any other, not even Makeup Forever. Makeup Forever's huge pans are 2 grams, so they're the same size actually as the Viseart ones, except the pan is just wider and more shallow. Next favorite, I do love this Sunset palette. I think that this will work on a variety of skin tones. You have, again, I'm not a gigantic fan of the Chroma Crystal formula, but I have noticed that in this one, they do seem slightly different. I will get a lot of fallout on my face from them, but these don't seem to be as like wispy glitter as some of her other ones. They looked beautiful on the eye for like an editorial look, but throughout the day, I would see little like sparkles, even with the glitter glue, fall out on my face, and it just wasn't my favorite formula. She updated these mattes to be a creamy matte formula, which I prefer much more over her original matte formula. Some of these colors at first I was like, yeah, they kind of look boring. I was watching some of her tutorials and trying to recreate them because she does some stunning eye looks and they are just wonderful. Again, if this is not, if you're not comfortable with the price tag on this, I would get the ColourPop one. I do just find, oddly enough though, the ColourPop one is more pigmented, but these will blend effortlessly for me and maybe sometimes I'll have to build it up if I want it a little deeper with like some of these dark browns, but that actually makes it easier for me because I can go on with a fluffy brush and it just diffuses itself, opposed to that. When I'm packing it on, it kind of just like sticks where you put it, and then you have to spend a little more time blending again, which I don't mind because, again, there's a huge price discrepancy between the two. I did buy this one. I did get one in PR at a later date, which I actually gave away in a giveaway to you guys. So this one I did purchase. This was originally limited edition, but they brought it back. It's now permanent. Next up is the Viseart Golden Hour palette. My only gripe with this is I love this outside packaging. I hate opening this. And I don't even have nails anymore, and it's a little bit of a difficulty for me. I don't know if it's just that I need to work on opening it more, but it just gets stuck for me. These shades in here are beautiful. Again, I love the reds, pairing these together and watching some of the professional makeup artists work. I did that live trend show with Muse, which was awesome, on their Instagram. And they had 3 different makeup artists using different products and just doing different eye looks. And watching Ivan come up with that beautiful look on the medium tone skin model was stunning. I've recreated it many times. These will all show up on light to deep skin. It's just a wonderful palette. You get this nice big mirror in it, which I'm trying not to blind you with my light. And this is more of their retail packaging because a lot of the retail customers weren't liking that clear lid, which I actually prefer because I want to know what I'm getting and just grab it. And I keep them in my vanity anyway, so the display doesn't matter for me. But this was really pretty. It just really looks luxe. Again, my only gripe is I have a hard time opening it. These metallics are part of that formula they've really like kicked up a notch, which I far prefer because they are much more of a foiled effect than that like light sweep of like shimmering fairy dust color that I find some of their 12 pan palettes to be. Next is going to be their Theory palettes. So I put all their Theory palettes in one palette just so it's easier for me to pick up because the little 6 pans, I don't like it that the outside of the packaging, you can't distinguish which is which just from looking at it. You have to turn it around and read. So when I'm grabbing for things in my vanity, I have to pick a bunch up to take a look at, read the back of which one's which. So I just prefer to keep it in this. They do pop into a little easel, but again, that's just not my cup of tea. But now I have these all empty, so if I want to travel, I can mix whatever I want in there. So the first one I love the most is Minx. I don't know if I just said Cashmere. Cashmere is right next to it. I love this Minx one so much. Again, I love these colors. This is something that on work days when I'm in a rush too, I can put this as my crease color, deepen out the outside V a little bit and just pick one of these to put all over my lid and then a brow bone highlight in our corner and I'm out the door. It's just super simple. The Amethyst is some of the best purple performing eyeshadows I've ever used. I really like those. They're all great. You just have to pick a color that you like. And so what I like about the Theories typically, all except for this bottom one, which I think was the Nuance. Is this Nuance? Yeah, I think this one was Nuance. They all come with 3 mattes and then 3 metallics, so you can kind of pair how you want, which I like. And I watched Alphonse do the all shimmer look on some of the models. Again, I'll have that linked below so you can watch. And it came out stunning. And when I tried to do it, I was like, mine does not look like that. So my favorite way to wear these is to pair these with some of the other mattes or some of their 12 pan palette mattes as well. My next favorites have been these Dose of Colors. Now they have 2 more palettes that came out, the Sassy Siennas and one that's kind of a peach one, I believe. I forgot what the heck it's called. I have not bought those yet because again, I'm so backed up with the other things I have on my plate. I'm telling myself like, you have to use some of your product up and you have to finish some reviews you have before I can buy more things to review so they're not just sitting there. So I'm need to pick up the new ones of these, but I have a review on these. These are extremely creamy. They are very powdery. You will get a lot of kick up with these. Just tap your brush in though. If you dig around, you're going to get a lot. They blend so beautifully. I love them both. These are one of those things too that I can toss in my bag and travel with, that I can do like very nice, easy, simple looks. And again, I prefer all mattes or mostly mattes. I do like shimmers, don't get me wrong, but something like this, it suits my eye shape the best and I can really make it from kind of subtle daytime and I can intensify it to be like a really nice matte smoky eye. Next one is the Colored Rain. This is their Beauty Rust palette. Again, I have a full review on this and a demo. I love this dusk color. I hope they do make these individual. Dream, Daisy, these are gorgeous. I probably should try these out and put them in an individual pan palette, but I love this and I reach for this palette very often. I love the color scheme in here. And basically, I think, what was it? You're saving like $3 opposed to if you were to buy 6 of their individuals. You just get them like this. They do call them minis, which is a little deceiving in the name because when I hear mini, I think that might mean that you're getting less shadow, but these are the exact same size as their individuals. So it's a full-size pan, which is nice. Last but certainly not least is my ABH Modern Renaissance palette. I freaking love this thing. This thing gets a lot of love from me. The Venetian Red, Love Letter, which is now an individual color. I'll have to go back through and look because I know I have Love Letter and some of these as individuals like Burnt Orange, Born Fresco, but I don't think all of these are individual yet. I have to double check. But I just love this palette. It's a classic. I'm yet to find anybody that's like, oh, I hate that palette. I'm sure one of you will tell me in the comment section now that you hate it. But overall, I think this is one of the highest rated palettes on Sephora if you look at compared to how many reviews they have too. Sometimes it can be deceiving. You'll look at something and you're like, oh, it got awesome reviews. It's like one person that reviewed the palette or 2 people. So I like to look for things that have a ton of reviews and then that'll kind of give you a good idea of what the general consensus is on something. Now let's talk about some palette fails for me this year. Okay, so these are those little Smashbox, these cover shot palettes. I don't like these. You know what I'm finding? I just don't like Smashbox eyeshadows. Everyone told me that these were different than their other ones. Maybe it's just the color scheme. I tried not to get the one that was like the berry tones because I have a million of those. So I was like, oh, let me jump out. Maybe that's why I don't like it. But these are all shimmers and then 2 mattes. And I'm just like, I don't know. They just don't impress me. And for the cost, no. I don't like them. I think that will be the end of me buying any more Smashbox eyeshadows unless they revamp their formula or do something completely different. They're just not my cup of tea. Next, I feel like I'm always ragging on Charlotte Tilbury. I do like her powders. I like some of her products. I love her matte lipsticks in a tube. That formula is awesome. She used to develop cosmetics for Tom Ford, and now her matte formula is almost spot on with the Tom Ford mattes that I adore, except like $20 cheaper than his. I don't care for these palettes, these instant look or the ones with all the shadows in them. I just don't like them. For the cost, I don't think it's a very wide audience that can use them. I think it's like a couple of shades of beige. I just like, this is a bronzer. And I don't even know, basically, this is lighter than the typical bronzer I use, which is pretty light already. I just don't like these palettes. It is nice packaging. I like this big mirror, but I would not purchase that with my own money. Next are these Stila palettes. So they have these Eyes of the Windows shadow palettes, and they all have different. This is the Spirit one. I did not like these shadows. You only had like 2 mattes and the rest were shimmers. And again, I mean, I could have probably figured that out, but I find the colors very muted. I just didn't like these, so I would not purchase that. Next eyeshadow palette is this Laura Mercier, the Eye Art Artist palette. These were all beautiful purples, and I like purples, so I was like, okay, this looks like there's like a good mix of mattes in here. I just don't like these. I feel like the colors are very muted. I feel like they kind of muddy up and blend away into nothing, so I would not buy that again. You know, I don't think I've liked any of Laura Mercier's eyeshadows that I've tried, so that might be a last purchase on something like that for me as well. Next is something that was sent to me. This is part of a holiday collection. These are like their little Les Ombre de Chanel. There are some Chanel products I like. Again, I've mentioned a million times I wouldn't use their skincare anywhere except for my feet, just because I think it's overpriced for the ingredients that you're getting. And again, I know I have some products that you can find that are less, or that you can buy like individual ingredients and make it up, but the product performs and I do like it. This, to me, I'm not getting like anything unique. I'm not getting an experience from this. Maybe you feel bougie having the Chanel Compact, but I just don't care for their eyeshadow formulas. I do like their cream bronzer and some of their powders, but this is not for me. And that one foundation, that Lift Lumiere that I had listed in my foundation, that made me break out every time I used it. Someone did tell me it's the lifting or firming ingredient that they have in there that can clog pores for a lot of people. So they said that that's what was causing it. I don't know, but my skin just did not like that. The last fail for me is this was sent to me. I love a lot of Hourglass products. I don't like any of these eyeshadow palettes that they have. All these colors start to mix together, like you can see here, dipping in, and they're just not good. These like mattes with the shimmers in there, they kind of like flake off on your face. The shimmer disappears. I don't like these. I don't think they're really good for like a complete look, and they're expensive, so I wouldn't buy any of those. Now let's get into my favorite individual shadows. I'm going to do these individuals in the same way. I'm going to go from the least expensive to the most expensive per gram again. So I have a whole review on Inglot. These are some of the most affordable. They're huge. I love them. Every time I'm in Las Vegas for a work convention, I always go to the Inglot store. They have one that is in Caesar's Palace, and my mom and I pick up a ton. The majority of what I get now are their pigments because I love those, and I'll touch on those in a minute. But I do have a review of the Inglot shadows that I own, as well as the pigments I will have linked below. You get a nice big pan of these, and they're just really great shadows. They have a variety of finishes. I really like them, and they're affordable. Next are the Colored Rain individuals. My only wish that anything I could change on these is that they had more colors that I could use as like transitions and things. Again, this is a Black-owned brand, and I have enough makeup options to choose from, so if they don't come out with lighter shades, I'm pretty sure I can live. I just have to go on with these a little bit lighter, or they can look a little too dark on me. But these foiled shadows are so nice. Their mattes are so nice. They make excellent eyeshadows. Again, I have a whole review on those. It will be linked below. I'm going to bring these up as a more quote-unquote affordable option because a lot of people, these aren't something that I reach for a ton, but I'm mentioning them because a lot of people love, these are the ColourPop pressed pigments. Now, some of their palettes I do like. These didn't necessarily knock my socks off. They're not bad, but they're not excellent to me. They are pretty pigmented, but again, I have a review on these. If you break it down, these are actually more expensive per gram than MAC eyeshadows, which, again, a lot of people think, oh, ColourPop's so affordable. It's like, I've never heard anybody describe MAC as affordable, so the fact that these are more, again, you're just getting less shadow. But if you just want to spend $5 in eyeshadow, these are a good option for you. Again, I wasn't particularly wowed with them, but I have my review down below. Next would be the Melt individuals. You can buy them on their own. Their black is the blackest black I have ever used, besides one other one that I'm about to touch on. Those are darker than the pits of my soul. They're dark. And they're huge. I'd be amazed if anybody has, like, tag me in it, like a picture of them hitting pan on their Melt eyeshadows, because those things are huge. Next I have my Makeup Geek shadows kind of all mixed together. And I have never done a dedicated review to Makeup Geek, which I kind of owe because I purchased all of these. They've come out with some new shadows in the past, I think year that I haven't been picking up, but I bought almost every single shadow that they make. Their foiled shadows are some of my favorite. They're foiled and they're duochromes I really like. I do like their mattes. I started buying way more of those instead of mattes, but now that I've tried a lot more different mattes and things, I don't reach for these. I love my Viseart mattes, and the only time I would reach for these above those is the color selection, because this is not really like a standard Viseart color. But again, I have other brands that I prefer over their mattes, but their foiled are beautiful. They go on the eye beautifully. They wear beautifully. They're stunning. You don't really hear as much about them anymore. I feel like it's always like a battle of the PR for brands. It's like, I remember when everything was like BH Cosmetics people were talking about, and I don't even know. People change on so much stuff, and then it was Makeup Geek, Makeup Geek, Makeup Geek, and now everywhere it's Morphe, Morphe, Morphe. So I guess, the tides change. Next, Colored Rain sent me these big magnetized books that they have, which I love, and the Colored Rain ones that I have are in their book, but I didn't have enough Colored Rain shadows to stick in here, so I put my Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadows in here, the ABH shadows that I love. These right here are my favorite in the middle. If you guys, want me to do like a dedicated video to these shadows, I will. I do have some of their metallics up here, which are beautiful. They're not as soft as like the Makeup by Mario, like that palette they did together, which were stunning. But if I tried to mix too many colors together, they would kind of like muddy up. So it was best to stick to like 3 colors max, and you got like a beautiful, impactful look. Some of these I really like. I mean, they're nice. Would I repurchase them for the full $12 a shadow? No. These ones right here in the middle are my favorite, and this looks like 50 shades of brown, right? But I use those the most because I can do neutral looks, use them as transition colors, and more intense looks. So I'm going to have the name on the screen here. I just took a close-up still of this. I'll have the names of which are which on here, and eventually I will get around to doing, I want to own every single one of their mattes. I love them, but they are pretty pricey. At the end of the year, you can always, they always have like some huge Black Friday sale where you can get them like half off or something ridiculously priced like that, which is awesome, or it's like buy one get one kind of idea. So it's nice. And last but not least, for individual shades, is the Natasha Denona Blackest Black. This one and the Melt Black are the blackest eyeshadows I have ever used. You do get 4 grams of product in here, but the price is still steep. So this makes it the most expensive, which is pretty much in keeping with her brand. Her brand is not what I would call necessarily affordable, but I do love her eyeshadows, and this is nice. Okay, now let's talk about eyeliners. So my all-time favorite, I'm wearing it in my waterline today, for like a brown eyeliner, is MAC's Costa Riche. They have so many different shades to choose from. I used to put a black in my waterline, but I found it a little too harsh, mostly when I had my lighter hair. Now my hair is a little darker. I'm sure I could get away with it a little more. It just looked like the contrast between the really blonde and then black on my eyes sometimes made me feel like, I don't know. I just felt like it was a bit too intense, so I didn't like it. This eyeliner I love though. These Melt eyeliners are really nice. I bought it in the color Baked, and this is really nice in my waterline. Now for liquid liner, these are the 2 I use the most. So I use that Vamp Stamp for everything. Anytime I'm wearing a wing, it's Vamp Stamp because they never look the same. One would be going up one way, one would be going the other. They'd be different lengths. I love that Vamp Stamp so much. So anytime I'm wearing a wing, I'm wearing that. Today I have on the medium. Once I stamp it on, though, I go on with my Kat Von D Tattoo Liner in Trooper. I like this one so much because this is a brush tip. So important to me. I do not like felt tip liners because they start to fray and I find the tip too thick. Now, it's all going to be about preference. Some people like it to be firmer like that when they're drawing across their eye. I prefer the brush. Now, this lid does have like a pump action on here that like clicks it into place. And I've heard that it helps bring the product out. Now, a sales associate told me that, but I don't know how that would be because I don't see any mechanism on this that's moving. I don't know if that's true. The key to these is store them tip down so you keep all the fluid coming on this brush so they don't dry out. If you store it like this and you've been using it a little bit, chances are it's going to dry out. That's a common complaint I've heard with this, but I've never found an eyeliner that I like as much as this one. The second favorite liquid liner is the Clinique Pretty Easy. This has that same kind of brush tip, but it's smaller, so it's a little easier to get in with details. I find this one doesn't budge though, and this one can move a little bit, like if you're sweaty or anything like that. It doesn't state on here that it's waterproof, so I'll have to look that up and put it in here. I don't think this one is. And then last but certainly not least are my favorite pigments. Inglot makes my all-time favorite pigments. They are so affordable in the realm of how much pigments typically go for, and they have such a wide color selection. Again, I have all of mine swatched. They're stunning and they last forever. So every time I go to the Inglot store, I just stock up on a ton of pigments because I love them. And then Sugar Pill makes my second favorite pigments. This one in particular is Penelope. Like, look at that beautiful copper color. Oh, son of a. It's just really nice. And I've had this for a really long time, and a little goes a very long way. Beautiful. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video, guys. I would love to hear what some of your favorites and fails in these categories were as well. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.